I'm back. On today's show, the 2022 iPad Pro is to gain mini LED displays. That includes the 11-inch, 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros still on track for Q3 of 2021. And is your time capsule a ticking time bomb? All that plus setups from you guys and your questions answered on today's iCave Dave. So let's get right into our main stories. First up, a new report from Guoming Chi reports that the next iPad Pro 11-inch is going to gain the mini LED displays that we've already been told are going to probably be replaced by OLED soon. Honestly, displays on iPads are a mess right now. It looks like the OLED is going to go into the iPad Air first, which I don't know why. Maybe they're just using one that's not quite as bright. Maybe the OLEDs that they're going to use only have 60Hz refresh rate, not the 120Hz ProMotion that they want to use. Maybe the ProMotion is reserved for the XDR mini LED displays. But it's very confusing right now. But yes, next year we should be getting mini LED across the range of the iPad Pros, which is a good thing, I guess. Next up, the MacBook Pros in 14 and 16-inch sizes with the M1X chip. Looks like they're actually going to be delivered this time, hopefully. We've said this a lot of times, but it looks like we'll be getting them in September/maybe October. I still think that Apple will, and I said this last year about the initial M1 launch, I think that it would be a really good idea for Apple to throw it on the end of an iPhone event, or at the beginning of an iPhone event. And the reason that I say this is because the majority of people out there that watch the iPhone event are only really interested in iPhones. But if they were able to kind of be tricked into watching that stuff, I guess, they would also see just how powerful Apple Silicon has become. At this point, although everyone in our community knows, everyone in the tech community, everyone that's been watching this stuff has got a really good idea of how fast M1 is and M1X will be, there's still the vast majority of people out there that just haven't got a clue what M1 means. They think that it's an iPad chip, which kind of makes sense because it kind of is. But I think if you throw it on a massive consumer event, then you might get even more traction, even more buzz going, because there's a lot of people that only watch the iPhone event because that's what they're going to buy. But if they saw the power that you can get in a Mac now for less money than you can get that power in an equivalent PC, I think that's going to be pretty compelling. And last up, in the news section, Time Capsule. There is a big issue here, and this is 2014 to 2018 Time Capsules as far as I can tell, but the report states, and this is translated from German, so apologies, the Seagate Grenada hard drive installed in the Time Capsule, and then it gives the catchy names for them. The parking ramp of this hard drive consists of two different materials. Sooner or later the parking ramp will break, and this hard drive model installed in a rather poorly ventilated time capsule. The damage to the parking ramp then causes the read-write unit to be destroyed and severely deformed the next time that the read-write unit is parked. When the time capsule is then turned on again or wakes up from hibernation, the data disks of the Seagate hard drive are destroyed because the deformed read-write unit drags across the surface. Is this a problem of Apple's making or a hard drive issue? It's a bit of both. So the poor ventilation means that the heating and cooling cycle is probably more drastic than it would otherwise be in most hard drive enclosures. That makes sense. But also, if the hard drive has basically an issue with its read-write head and the parking ramp being damaged so that it doesn't kind of stop properly and then it breaks the read-write arm, which then destroys your disks, that's kind of an issue with the hard drive. So there is a way out of this, which is if you have one of these, back it up straight away, and you can actually replace the hard drives inside of these. I don't think it's a particularly easy job. They've got a weird kind of diagonal mounting inside, but I'm pretty sure it's a doable thing. So if you rely on a time capsule from Apple from 2014 to 2018, back it up now and probably get that drive replaced. So ends the PSA. Now moving on to our setups, Kyle Dodds from South Africa. Right, I have my setup near perfect for my needs now, really going as clean as possible. Here's the breakdown. MacBook Pro 15-inch 2018 model with a 2.6 GHz 6-core i7, soon to be replaced by a 16-inch M1X hopefully by the end of the year, paired with an LG 5K Ultrafine, the one with a Thunderbolt cable for display and power is a treat. iPad Pro 12.9-inch 4th generation, sometimes on its stand when needed for sidecar. HomePod Mini, which handles all the HomeKit devices including the lights in this setup. AirPods Pro charging on a MagSafe interchangeably with the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Other items in the room, a Cecil Nurse motorised standing desk, LifeX HomeKit Smart light bulbs, Moros HomeKit plugs, and a Dyson hot-cold fan. So I think this is a really cool, clean setup. I'm not really here to review them for you guys, but everyone's setup works differently for them, and everyone's setup is equally valid. My setup, although it looks kind of okay in the background of here, it is a mess. There's another display here, there's a Windows laptop here, which I have to use for work, which I've always compared to if you were a chef, and you have all your own lovely knives, and then you go to a new restaurant, and they say, It's great that you have all this equipment and that you know how to use it all, but here's a stick to cut some steak with. It's an absolute nightmare. But I have to say, like, everyone's setup is different, everyone has different tasks to perform, and I really like the look of this, so thank you, Kyle, for sharing this with us. And if you've got a setup you want to share with the group as well, david@sangwells.co.uk is my email address, or you can DM me on Twitter. And we're going to get into some iCave answers now. So, first up comes from Grey or Grey. I think this one might be a little bit of a gag, but here we go. iCave answers, why is your name iCave Dave? Do you live in an apple cave? So, to actually give you the backstory of the name really quickly, I'm going to take this question seriously. We started off by this channel being called Living on iPad because I started a blog called Living on iPad because during lockdown I tried to do everything on my iPad. So we did about 3 months of living on iPad, and then we moved over to the new name once we got kind of over 1,000 subscribers, because I thought I don't want to change this when the channel actually gets really big. So, iCave Dave basically came from the fact that we were already doing iCave Answers, because this is my little room, which is full of Apple stuff, and I called it iCave David Eden Sangwell, which is much less catchy. And then one of the viewers, Mac Daddy, came up with the idea of, why didn't you just call it iCave Dave? And I went, yeah, that's really a much better idea. And that's what we did, and then I painted iCave on the door. So, that's the whole story. Rodrigo Vega asks, quick question, could Apple implement distributed computing with the M series chips? I remember back in the day that the first Mac Pro Intel, they advertised Logic Node or something, where if you wanted more processing power, you simply bought more Mac Pros and integrate them into the same network, and there was a button where you could assign tasks to node processing. Could that be something that's possible with MacBook Pro M series, and say an iPad Pro or even an iPhone, or all of them, to expand processing capabilities? Now, this is definitely something that we've already discussed on the channel. Originally, when we were talking about the possibility of a Mac Mini SE, possibly in this form factor of like the Apple TV. So, one of these little pucks, because the amount of stuff that's actually in a Mac Mini is really quite small and would probably fit in one of these. Now, this is the 3rd generation, which is the thinner one, but the thicker ones that we have now actually have active cooling inside as well. They do have fans in there. I don't think there would be any reason that Apple couldn't put a Mac Mini into something that size, especially with an M1 chip. So we were talking about this being a great computer that you could basically add to your kids' bedroom TV so that they could do their homework and even use their iPhone as a keyboard for it, and then use the rest of the network so that when those Mac Minis aren't in use, they can certainly be distributed different tasks automatically by the network. I would think it would be even better if you could just use latent downtime on all the devices on your network to do processing, especially now that everything is on the same architecture. So you could use an iPhone to help you render in the background for your Final Cut projects, for example. And I do think that there's a lot of scope for this. Whether Apple will do it or not, I don't know, because I guess if maybe the iPhones would need to be plugged in, the iPads would need to be plugged in, just so that you're not kind of emptying the battery, so that when you go to pick them up, having finished your work, you've just got an empty iPhone. Brandon L asks, do you know of any way to install and boot Windows 10 on an M1 Mac? I know Apple doesn't support Boot Camp, but do you know of any third-party alternatives? Right now, as far as I know, there aren't any third-party alternatives. I don't expect that Apple will bring Boot Camp back to the M1 Macs. The only way that they might is as part of a dual launch with Windows 11 when that comes out, because obviously Windows is moving to a new major version, and a lot of the focus on that is probably going to be on the fact that ARM computing, ARM-based processing is going to be a bigger thing in future, and RISC-V. So I think Windows and Microsoft are going to put a lot more effort into having an ARM version that works, and in that case, there's a possibility that they might revive Boot Camp for that. At the moment, your best bet is something like Parallels, or there's a couple of other options. You can use things like Crossover to run individual apps using like a version of Wine. But, I mean, right now, the M1 Mac is just great at being a Mac, more than it is at being a Windows machine. Evan Rogers asks, iCaveAnswers, pizza or pasta? Okay, if you guys think this is even a question, you guys don't know me at all. Pizza. Obviously pizza, but I'm going to bounce this question right back at you guys. Let me know down in the comments section just the word pizza or pasta, but know that if pasta is the option that you choose, you're wrong. And Team Kinetics. iCaveAnswers, how damaging to tech YouTubers do you think the current rumour and news drought will be if Apple carry on cracking down on rumours? So I appreciate making the kind of lack of news into a news item here, really appreciate that, but there's always going to be cycles like this. There's been a lot of times in the past where you've had no information that's coming out at all. If you go back before the iPhone 4, there was almost no leaks of any sort. The whole rumour thing was kind of brought on by Gizmodo getting their hands on that original iPhone 4 prototype that was in a case that kind of made it look a bit like a 3G. So if it happens, it happens, and we will pivot. We will do different stuff. I'm interested in what's coming next from Apple. Like, that's what fascinates me, and more so with the Macs than with the phones, more so with what can be done with the Macs. But there's no point in me just talking about Macs on this channel, because the beauty of what Apple does with their systems, with their ecosystem, with the way that everything works together, is the way that it works together. And a Mac is not more, like, the Mac is made more powerful by having an iPhone next to it, with universal control by having your iPad next to it, so that you can just grab a file that's on it. So there's no way that I could only just talk about the one, but the way that everything's built together is what fascinates me, and what Apple will do next with that is also what fascinates me. So regardless of whether we have a lot of rumours, no rumours, to be honest, at the moment, the only rumours that we're kind of losing out on is release dates, if anything, because we kind of know what the MacBook Pro is going to be able to do. We kind of know what's going to be inside it already. I think, actually, this current lack of rumours might not be that Apple's cracked down as much, but more that everything's just been delayed, so there isn't anything new to be leaked right now. We'll see. Apple is definitely going to always try and squash leaks. We're always going to try and find them, because it's interesting, and the only reason we do it is because we're so into the stuff that Apple does, and we want to know what's coming next. So if for some reason there's never another leak and everything is brand new at the events, it just means that we put back the content and we talk about the stuff that Apple releases once they release it. But at the moment, if there's not a lot going on, what can we do? I will answer all your questions. I will keep doing the setup stuff. We'll start looking a bit more at Apple history and kind of the philosophy behind stuff. But just let me know what you want to know about in the comments, and we can do it. Thank you so much for watching. Apologies for the no-show yesterday, but also thank you so much for the very, very kind comments from everyone. I know that this is a secondary thing. I know that work has to come first. I know that the family stuff has to come first, especially with 2 kids that are not in the best of health. But I also don't want to get into the habit of missing shows. Even if we make a short show, then I will try and do that rather than no show at all. But there was just I sat down to make a show yesterday and there were no questions from you guys, so you guys let me down. And also, there was nothing on the news sites. It was like, oh, you can get $200 off a MacBook Pro with M1 on Amazon and use our link so that we make some money. That was basically what all the news sites were, and I don't want to go down that line. I don't want to be like a voucher website. So thank you for watching, appreciate you all, and we'll see you on the next show.